guys, so I just want to make just another Soulwinning tip video, and what I want to talk about specifically is about the importance of memorizing the verses that you're using, right? And so this goes for whether you take a physical Bible with you or if you're just, going by memory, quoting the verses, right? Now, obviously, if you're going by memory, it makes sense why you should memorize the verses, right? So that way like, okay, this is what the verse says. Obviously, if you don't quote it correctly, you might actually be almost like giving a correct version of what that verse is trying to say, right? And so it's very important that you're able to quote it correctly for that reason. And also there's the idea of efficiency as well. So the idea is that if you're quoting a verse that you're already familiar with, then obviously saying it is going to be a lot more smoother, a lot more faster. Like, it's almost like there's a better flow to it when you're saying it if you already know what the verse says, than if you're trying to quote a verse and you're not entirely sure what it's trying to say. Even if you have a physical Bible with you, if you try to read it but you're just not familiar with how that verse sounds, then you might stumble as you're trying to quote that verse, right? And of course, obviously, it's always better to bring a physical Bible with you anyway, right? But the idea is that even if you bring a physical Bible with you, it's still very important to memorize the verses that you're using. Now, of course, most likely you're going to memorize them anyway, just out of habit, that you use them so often that you memorize them naturally, right? But even if you're using a physical Bible, you still want to have that verse memorized in your head, right? Have it stored in your memory, so that way, because obviously if you have the Word of God in your heart, what it's going to help you do is that's going to help you kind of understand the Word of God better. When you have it, in your heart, you can meditate on it, and so it helps you understand the verse better. And obviously, if you have a better understanding of that verse, it's going to be much easier to understand the verse, explain the verse to someone, right? Because obviously, you can memorize a verse, but if you're not thinking about it and you don't really understand what it's trying to say, then you might run into the risk of quoting a verse when you're out soul winning, and you might think that the verse is supporting what you're trying to say, but it's actually taken out of context, right? Because just because something is true, just because a doctrine is true, doesn't mean that just any verse you pull out of the Bible necessarily supports that doctrine, right? So that's just something you got to keep in mind. So it's very important to memorize your verses, so that way it can come out, as you're quoting it, it comes out really smooth, very natural, right? You don't have to stutter as you're doing it. And also memorizing it helps you make sure that you actually understand what the verse is saying, you're meditating on it, and that way you can kind of make connections as well if you feel like that's necessary to help kind of drive the point home, if that makes sense. So yeah, hopefully this helped.